Make sure you're in stills mode. Press menu, and we'll start off with image quality settings. It's set to JPEG. You want to change this to RAW plus JPEG or RAW. I like RAW plus JPEG, and the JPEG quality I like light, and image size would be smallest. Okay. Next up is the file format. I am using H.265 4K. The default is HD. You want 4K. I mean, this is a 4K camera. Movie settings, 24p, and I'm using 10-bit 420 for ease of processing. Moving on, long exposure noise reduction. You don't want this on. This is going to give you the additional black frame when you're taking a really low light shot. It's the dark frame, so it cleans up the noise. You clean up the noise yourself. It'll save you time in the field. So make sure this is off. The default is on. Next up, we're going to go change the file and naming convention because it's slightly confusing. Go to File, Folder Options, and set the file name. I set it to A4 because you can only set 3 characters. A7iv would be better, but I can't do that, so I'm just setting A4. Hit OK. And here is where you switch to video mode and do the same thing over there. You go to title name settings. All right, and this one you can set A7iv. So you can differentiate between each camera you have. Say if you have an A7 III or A7S III, you know which camera it came from. Or if you have an AB camera, you can name this A7 4A or B. All right, next up is image stabilization, and that is under its own category right here. You want to set it to on. However, you have to swap to video mode and set it to active stabilization. That's the most steady version in video, and it's different for stills and video. All right, next up, when you're still on video, we'll go to zoom and zoom range, and you want to change it to clear image zoom. It's going to be on optical only as a default. You want optical plus clear image zoom so that when you're zooming in, you go past it and it'll automatically go to clear image zoom and give you that 1.5 extra magnification. And if you're enjoying these Sony videos so far, be sure to subscribe. There's more coming on the way. Let's get back to the video. Okay, now I am back to stills mode. Let's get back in here, and exposure. We have ISO, but I am going to get back to this a little later and you'll see why. Moving on, autofocus, manual focus. You want to change priority set in AFC to release. I want the camera to be as fast as possible, no delays at all. AF tracking sensitivity, responsive. So that's just how I set my camera. These are optional. Scrolling down, this is for the back button autofocus users. If you use that, then you want to shut this off. I don't personally use it because I enjoy modern technologies. Moving on, we're going to clean up the focus a little bit. Moving on to focus area and focus area limit. And I disable all these features right here because I don't use them all. I only use a certain few focus areas, and that's it. And once you disable it here in the stills mode, it'll apply a lot of it to your video, and in the video you might have only 2 left over. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to give it a like. And moving on, we are going to peaking display, and I have it turned to on. I have my peaking levels at low, and peaking color is red. I don't like it having peaking level any higher than mid. I would go mid, but it gets a little bit busy in your screen, and especially with high, it can get really busy, so I have it on low. All right, moving on. There is playback. No, we'll go to smartphone connect. No, that's a separate video. Let's go to setup, and here we go to customize. And you want to customize your key dial set. These are how I have it. It's totally up to you how you have it. I find that I have to have at least this, the AF/MF toggle, because some of my lenses, they don't have a switch. So I always have AF/MF toggle for if I'm doing any sort of photography or video. I do go into manual focus a lot because I don't want it wandering around. So that is really convenient. I have the finder selector manually done right here. Here's the button that if you're using back button autofocus, you can change this to autofocus. You can change it to AF on, but I have it on focus hold. So when I want to stop the focus from wandering, then I just hold this AF button, AF on button. For video, it's mostly the same. You know, there's one I forgot. It's my dial right here. I have this set to my dial because I'm gonna make use of this right wheel. So you go back and we'll use it later, you'll see. And one more custom setting is the rating button, and I have that up here, rating. Okay, moving on. Function menus, these are totally up to you. I try not to use anything that's already been labeled on the back of the controls. So I just have exposure comp here because I'm not going to use this that often, exposure comp. So I have it here, and I actually have it to a wheel as well. Electronic versus mechanical shutter, stabilization, auto ISO with minimum shutter speed, mic levels for recording, focus map, active stabilization, white balance. And when I'm handing off the camera to somebody else, I turn off touch operation so that they don't inadvertently change stuff. Picture profiles for the video. However, up here, dynamic range optimizer, you're not going to be using picture profiles in stills ever. So that's why they're slightly different. Moving on is the really important one. Different set for stills and movie. And this is how I set this. I believe none of them are toggled. I toggle most of them except for metering, white balance, and focus mode. It just doesn't really make sense to change those. With metering, I'm using the standard multimeter. With white balance, if I'm in a scenario where I have the white balance changed, I want to keep it the same. So yeah, that's why I want those to stick around. When it comes to focus mode, I don't like to separate these because it gets confusing. So if I'm switching from stills to video and I'm in manual focus on both of them, then it's more intuitive for me. If I know which focus mode I'm in, I could just switch, and I don't have to remember each focus mode of stills and video, if that makes sense. All right, this is the last one before I go to ISO, and it's under setup option AntiDust. Okay, so when I was using this on the A1, there was a problem. It took 4 or 5 seconds. However, with the A7 IV, oh, by the way, don't touch the shutter ever. It seems to work faster. So I have it set to on. Let's see how long it takes. I'm gonna turn it off. There you go. That was like 3 seconds. Yeah, so with the A7 IV, it covers in a fast enough time that it's actually usable. With the A1, I think it was going 4 or 5 seconds to cover the shutter, and I don't want to lose that time when I'm switching on the fly really fast. So I do like that the feature is actually more usable now. All right, now back to ISO, and this is a two-part operation, but you're only gonna do it one time. Okay, so where am I going? Here we go, ISO. And it's not the range limit, it's under ISO auto. But when you're in ISO auto, I set mine to 100 3200 because you're shooting RAW, it's more flexible than video. Okay, so when I'm in video mode, let me see if I could swap to video mode. All right, now I'm in video mode. I set this to 800 and 12800. Well, 800 is automatic because it's an S-Log3 right now. I don't like going over this certain amount when it comes to video. It's not as flexible as it is with stills, and that's just your mileage may vary type of thing. The reason why you want it different is because your base ISO with video can differ from profile to profile. With S-Log3 is at 800, but even if you're doing HLG, it's not going to be ISO 100. It's a little bit off, and that's why I suggested moving this change to last. Going back, we go to dial customize and then my dial settings. And this is what happens when I set the my dial switch, this C2. So when I hold C2 and I scroll the left wheel, I change ISO. When I scroll the right wheel, I change focus area. And the reason I have even a focus area is because it's different for stills and video. They don't completely carry over when you change that setting. I wish they did. And well, I wish there was a way to segregate the settings. For instance, when I'm shooting stills, I want to do lock-on AF tracking. However, when I'm doing video, I just want to do wide area, and they carry over, so I have to switch it really quickly. And I have the control wheel with my dial for exposure compensation. Hit OK. So now if I'm using the camera and I hit the my dial, it's going to tell me at the bottom. If I use the left wheel as ISO, right wheel is for focus area, and then the spinny wheel is for EV. And you can see my EV is different when I am in video mode, and now I'm switching to stills mode. My EV is different there as well. And I could just dial it in, +3 or +7. I like to just leave it at +3 unless I'm outdoors, and I'll just do 0. One last one is the power temperature setting, and it's under power setting option, auto power off temp. The default is standard. Set it to high. This is so that you don't get interrupted and it shuts off on you inadvertently. And I was able to get 8 minutes with 4K 60 on standard before the temp comes on. So I would suggest setting it to high. It's probably a CYA tactic by Sony. So I've never had a problem with this ever before. With any camera, you should be okay. And that is it. I think you're ready to go get started shooting. Of course, you could modify a lot of it further, but this should be a good baseline to get you going in a hybrid scenario. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks and take care.